We still do 7 NUFC Matters show a week for free. But if you want to help support NUFC Matters, then there are a few ways of doing it. Hit the like button on each live broadcast and video. This helps the channel grow. Hit the subscribe button and select the all notifications bell so you don't miss a single show. If you want to help us financially, then you can join the channel using this button with the membership starting at $1.99 a month. Or you can drop us a donation in the chat using a super sticker. We're also looking for sponsors. If you'd like your brand advertised on the flyers for the show and featured during the ad break, then email John at nufcmatters.com to arrange today.
Critics attack. It feels like I've been talking to myself again. But it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot say to you. If I don't say the words, then maybe it's not true. And it feels alright when they come and say to you, you're the only thing that makes us all believe. And it feels alright where the worlds collide. Manipulation stands to make us break. What's that you scared coming over you? You wish it upon a star. You wish it on a star. You are, you are, you are. You fight back, it's an all-out attack. It feels like I've been taken on the world's machine. Because I want it more than anyone can dream. You look back and it's all in the past. You tell me how you live by all the things you do. Well, you can be yourself, but maybe I'm not you. And it feels alright when they come and say to you, you're the only thing that makes us all.
Good evening, welcome to NUFC Matters, the three amigos, the perfect way to kickstart your Newcastle United weekend. And it's welcome to Steve, George, Buramag and Mitch. And welcome to you at home. 2 hours of this madness on a Friday night. And hopefully no expletives from War George. Anyway, we're not going to talk about Brighton. Buramag had his daughter on earlier there, just in the green room, just overseeing things, making sure that her dad got things right. But we're not going to talk about Brighton. That's in the past. We're moving on. We're looking ahead to what's going to be a busy week for Newcastle before the Amigos is on again. We've got, obviously, we've got 2 games to look forward to, an away game and a home game against Chelsea, one in League, one in the Cup. So we will be looking ahead to that a little bit later on. But as always on a Friday, we tend to open it up. If there's decent questions or people putting stuff in the chat, we'll go straight with whatever you want us to talk about. And John Askew was, as always, he's in early. Good afternoon, all. He says, Aston Villa are doing what we were supposed to be doing. What are Villa getting right that we are getting wrong, Steve?
Oh, good question. Winning games, I suppose. That's probably the easiest answer. No, I mean, I think Villa are doing what we did last season, and nice, slow and steady, catchy type of football. The way that they've organised, the club's been organised. You got to remember they were relegated. They were in the Championship the year after us. So it's very much a learning curve for them as well, and they've done it really well. They've got a manager in Unai Emery who was one of the names that I threw out right in the very early days of who the consortium might bring in if they took over Newcastle United, if you remember. And Emery was one of the 2 names in the frame for Newcastle, but he got the job at Villa, and I think we all knew that he had something special when it comes to European football because of his success. And what he's done at Villa is just very, very quietly gone about his business. And I think they've made some astute signings. I think he's got some problems. He's got an amazing problem that we don't have. He's got two strikers. He doesn't know which one to play. We've got no strikers, and we'd like to play them both. But that's the issue. I mean, but no, I think they've just gone about it in the right way. I think that. Financially, they've been a little bit hamstrung like we've been. But I think when you look at, in the way that we did the previous season, they've caught some of the so-called bigger teams on the hop, got themselves into first the UEFA spot and then got themselves into a Champions League spot last season. And hey, they've gone off with a rocket, haven't they? Absolutely amazing. 3 wins out of 3 under this new format of the Champions League. So all we can say is well done to Villa, as much as it might stick in many of our throats because many of us are not Villa fans. Although I must admit, I did have a certain inkling for Villa back in the 80s when they had the likes of Gary Shaw playing for them and Chris Worth and Mortimer and such like. They did play some attractive football in those days. But I liked Maverick footballers anyway. So whether it was QPR, whether it was Aston Villa, whether it was where Sir Bobby Robson got Ipswich to play when you were a youngster, that's what you looked. Which reminds me, I must just say, pass on my condolences to all the lads who knew Jimmy Forbes. Jimmy was a young lad when I was young, went to school with him, died a couple of weeks ago. And he was a fabulous footballer, 64-year-old when we lost him. Great footballer, played for St. Augustine's in Walker. They had an invincible team, believe it or not, down in Walker. And he also played for St. Mary's Boys Club. And to everybody who knew Jimmy, all his family, and all the lads who played football with him, I just want to pass on my sincere condolences, Steve.
Yeah. George, over to you, my friend. What's your thoughts on the question that John posed? Why are Aston Villa doing what we should have been doing?
Yeah, difficult for me because my history goes back to being anti-Aston Villa since 1949. And my whole family would have cheerfully gone to Birmingham, burned Villa Park to the ground because they pinched our manager behind our backs. They signed him, and he signed and left us in the lurch completely. And so that didn't go down very well. So the other things that happened, like the relegation song and tears on the Tyne and all that, just like water off a duck's back to me. What they're doing right, well, they've got a formula and they're sticking to it. We have got a formula and we haven't been able to stick to it for injuries and other reasons. You can't help but wonder if there's something we're missing at St James's Park or at Benton and the training ground. But you can only admire what they've done. And as I say, they've got a formula that seems to work and they're sticking to it. And once something like that works, it goes. The other thing you've got to look at as well, though, is who they're beating, who they're playing. And they haven't had the sort of competition we've had to put up with our start of the season. So there's a mixture of things. But you can't deny that what they're doing seems to work and they're sticking to it. And that's a key thing. Making sure that the thing works and keeping it working. So you can only admire what they're doing. I firmly believe that we are now starting to get it right. We're starting to play like we can play. The only thing we've struggled with, as Steve alluded to at the beginning, is having somebody to stick the ball in the back of the net. If we had, we'd have been at least 5 points better off than we are, if that had been the case. But at the end of the day, I'd rather be us than Aston Villa. Simple as that. Because I think when the season ends up, I think we'll be in the box seat as far as Aston Villa are concerned.
Joe, same question to you, mate.
Yeah, I kind of agree with the lads. It's difficult to kind of praise Aston Villa, given what I think about them, but let's give credit where credit's due. I think other than the things that the guys have mentioned, so obviously, yes, they're winning football matches. I do like Unai Emery, and I'm not going to start, let's not start on Eddie Howe, because it's like, 11 minutes into the show. I'll try and steer clear of that one, but he's a top manager. The guy knows what he's doing, and I wouldn't have been disappointed had he have come in, and not Eddie Howe, as we were led to believe he was going to. They've got fit centre forwards. They've got the right players in the right positions, doing the right thing. I don't get the sense that they're making panic substitutions after 60 minutes and taking 3 off and sticking 3 on and moving him here and there. There seems to be a blueprint, and that's what they do. I thought they would follow us in terms of they qualified for the Champions League, and then this season might be a bit of a slog and a bit of a struggle. At the moment, things seem to be going well. They're not hampered by injuries, and they are, they're doing what Champions League teams do. They're winning games. I think the other thing they don't have at the moment as well is that they haven't been in the news recently about turmoil off the pitch. I haven't heard that their director of football is potentially not friends with Unai Emery. I haven't heard that directors are leaving the football club and chief executives are having to step down because they are unfortunately seriously poorly. All of those things, when you stack them all up, will be, whether we agree or not, having an adverse effect on Newcastle United. So that's maybe why they're doing a bit better than us.
Okay, yeah, Mitch, there's some interesting points coming in the chat, which I'll let you. It helps you, I guess, with your answer as well. That Yvonne Kingswell joins Don. Villa sold 2 of their best players and reinvested the money wisely. ? Yvonne says Villa didn't have 14 years of purgatory under the Ashley years. That takes a lot of sorting out. Kenny Morland says Villa sold Grealish for £100 million profit, and it's helped them build a squad where we haven't been able to because of PSR rules. And James Moore says Emery's been backed consistently. How hasn't? So lots of comments coming in about this.
Well, and they are slightly earlier in their PSR cycle than we are. So there's another reason. And their takeover was part funded by shareholder loans. So there's another wiggle room on PSR. They have had saleable assets that they have been able to sell and reinvested the money very wisely. Let's give them the credit where it's due there. Their squad management has been exceptional compared to ours. We have an aging squad. We have too many players in certain positions and not enough in others. And that's now showing with a lack of certain options. Certainly did at the weekend for me. So there's a whole host of reasons. And don't underestimate that Grealish sale. How that on PSR supercharges your balance. We presumably, because we don't know, but it would appear that we hung our hat on selling Bruno for mega bucks in the summer. Yeah. That didn't happen, and we had to replan at short notice. And the only saleable assets we had were young players, not the aging players that would struggle to get off the books further. So, there's a number of reasons for it. I think James's point is right as well, that off the pitch, they have a back room that works in harmony, that's had no turmoil, that's had no division, that's had no potential split over the summer, that's had nobody leave, that's hadn't had a CEO get very, very poorly out of the blue, and therefore I think we've naturally lost a little bit of leadership out of that. So there's a whole host of reasons that actually we wouldn't be talking about this right now if we clicked on the pitch a bit better. We just wouldn't. It papers over the cracks a little bit, but all those things would still be there and be valid points. For all, I will never forget what Villa did when we got relegated, and I was down there in that bloody convoy leaving Birmingham, and it felt like the police took me down every back alley so every Villa fan could have their say that we're leaving. You've got to give credit where it's due. When a club's doing something right, when they've burst into that cartel, and make no mistake about it, they'll be as upset about them doing it as they are us. Probably more so. What was the famous quote in one of the Premier League meetings? we can't have another Leicester happening.
I tell you what
And
also
so-
helps. I tell you what also helps is when you sell that £100 million player, and he might have relative success with his new club, but in terms of his personal success rate and the way he's been playing, then it's not been successful. It's given the fans an opportunity to turn around and go, you know what, that was a good deal.
Yeah,
Not only
absolutely.
a good deal because
He's
got
not
100
gone
million,
off.
not
He's
playing well.
not gone off and set the world alight, and so they can turn around quite happily and say, "Do you know what? Yeah, we've got good value out of that. Thanks, bye. Thanks for that. Cheers. Thanks, Jack."
And it's the same with the lad that they sold to the Juventus as well in the summer.
Yeah,
hasn't gone to Juventus and set the world on fire, you know. So again, big money, but not.
And again, that is undoubtedly, you know, all in their favour. You also look at their Champions League experience. They've gone into this ridiculous new format, this Swiss chess system. And again, you can only beat what's put in front of you, but they're never going to get a group of death. The group of death is never going to happen again.
No.
And this new system rewards bigger teams and bigger clubs, which, by the fact that they're from the Premier League, Villa class has. It keeps the bigger clubs going along nicely. The bigger clubs can afford to miss out, to cock up on a couple of things because they've got another chance. And they don't care about whether they're going to get the buy into the next round or whether they've got to play an additional knockout round. They'll just worry about getting through to the next round. And the way that this system works, you've also got to remember it's a system whereby a draw hurts you almost as much as a loss. It's about wins. It's about picking the wins up against the smaller teams that you play. And if you can nick a win off one of the bigger teams, then happy days. Because if you, in the old Champions League format, if you drew, you potentially only lost ground to one other team. In this format, if you draw, you lose ground to potentially 17 teams. And it's a very, very different format that has to be managed in a different way. And again, they've got that right. Let's give the manager credit. He plays in a system. Everybody knows the system he plays, but he's also very adept at making subtle changes in how they play in a game situation. And that's how we did, well in Spain. I still remain convinced that his agents used us to get him a better deal, and it was not about him ever coming to Newcastle United. Certainly, from what I was aware of certain movements of agents and said manager, etc. But he gets the best out of what he's got, and their balance sheet's a lot healthier because they've had the sales that we can't make and haven't made. And so you can add a number of things. Everybody's been quite astute with what they brought up in the comments there. You pretty much covered the bits I was going to cover quite nicely, so it made my job very easy. Thank you all very much. But it's quite clear that there's a number of factors in why they are doing well and doing better and seem more cohesive than us at the minute. But we aren't actually that far away. Now I have actually calmed down after the weekend a bit. I'm not quite as mad as I was on Sunday. And it just shows again and again that the fine line between success and failure in the Premier League is a very, very narrow one.
Certainly is. Lots. Go on, Steve. You wanted to make another point.
And for all the conspiracy theorists among us out there, Villa are also a Stars and Stripes club. They're also importantly American owned. Let's not forget that. So they're not getting the additional pressure brought to bear on certain quarters of the press and certain quarters within the Premier League, doing everything they can to undermine anything that the football club is trying to achieve off the field and on it.
Okay, let's move on. We've got a lot of subjects to cover tonight. Where do I go? There's a couple of great ones. Which let's do the one which is going to take the most time. I think Stephen Howe. Good evening, Stephen. He says, thoughts, guys, on Justin Barnes leaking the WhatsApp text Could this be Ashley's way of getting at the club following the Adidas shirt deal? Now, I'm not aware that it's Justin Barnes. I haven't kept up to date with the story as far as who leaked the WhatsApp messages. Certainly, it was somebody in the know.
It's been inferred that it's been said that the WhatsApp messages were between Amanda and Justin Barnes.
Okay.
That doesn't necessarily mean it's him who's leaked them.
Exactly.
But that would be the inference. We also, if they're on a group, we don't know who else would be on that group.
Okay. Well, Mitch, you've took the lead, so let's go with you, and we'll go the reverse.
Okay.
We'll go the reverse way around the board. Look, for me, I've heard the stories. I've read the stories. We know the story back to front. We were involved in it. Keith knows the story back to front as well. He's the only person, missing on this panel who knows the stories back to front. So for me, it's no surprise to see this come to a head. The motives of why they've been released now, we can only speculate. What do you think is the reason?
Mate, I still think this is something that probably the Premier League have sat on for a while. And it's more to do with their current struggles and legal battles, and particularly one with associated party transactions. It's my opinion, and it remains my opinion, that we would do things in a nice way. And would go to the Premier League and say, look, this is a mess, isn't it? And we've got these deals waiting to put through, and as per the rules, we can... one of the rules that remains in place that hasn't been found unlawful, that it's up to us to prove that the values are fair market value, and we feel we can. Can we proceed with this with your blessing? We don't want any more legal wrangles, and I'm sure you don't too. And I think that's what the Premier League's response is to release information via client journalists that they've been sitting on for a while. It would be foolish to think that they don't have information like that they've been sitting on, because everybody does in this murky world of football finance. There's no doubt about it. Tax on a conversation I've just had, partly in public and partly in private, with Kieran Maguire on Twitter just before I come on. And I think this is the whole world of football, and particularly when it comes to financial things, is murky at best. And when there's stories, when there's information to be leaked, they do it very deliberately. We're seeing clearly that they've tried to bring all of that client journals in over the last week at the end of the day, I don't care how they want to dress it up. We'll call it the loss to Man City. Because once again, it comes back to the simple fact. It's like somebody emptying a revolver at you, and the 5 bullets missed, and they don't matter, but 1 bullet hit and that killed you. And that's how it works. You can talk about how many things have been dismissed, even just one, and it's more than one, have been proven unlawful, and therefore we have a problem. We have a massive problem going forward, or at least the Premier League do, and what they do with the APT rules and where they sit right now. I believe with that taken out, it reduces Man City's 115 charges to under 70, for example. And so they're scrambling. They're trying to defend their corner. And they've already proven time and time again they're quite happy to chuck mud and hope some of it sticks. This is an old story, as Liam's quite rightly pointed out. It's not news to him. He wrote the original bloody story. So, and also, and again, this is one of the fine differences about the involvement of Saudi state and the separation from PIF. It is difficult. But you also have to then put it into perspective. The money they've invested in Newcastle United is, in PIF terms, a drop in the ocean. And therefore, day to day, the big man in Saudi is not really interested in what goes on at St James's Park. He's got better and bigger things to deal with. Interesting that he swerved the BRICS meeting recently, but that's a geopolitical thing. We don't want to go back there. So yeah, it's a non-story that I hope and sticks a bit more, and it's done the job because it's got people talking about, you know, Newcastle United and the takeover in Saudi and everybody, and again it backs the constant narrative that seems to be now entrenched from the Premier League. American money good, money from the Middle East bad.
How many times have we heard that? Interesting turn of events, Joe, really, with all of this. I did laugh at the way that it was reported in the papers and in the media channels, certain media channels at the start of the week, you know, more or less suggesting that Newcastle's takeover could be declared null and void. And as if somebody was going to go, right, well, we've got to give it back to Mike Ashley now. I mean, you know, come on, you know, be sensible. But I mean, it's been interesting, hasn't it? I mean, this is the world we live in as well. You know, things get screenshotted and stuff and shared, and you know, some people do it as an ulterior motive to use against people at a later date. We see it with trolling on social media. But what's your views on all of this?
I mean, being a conspiracy theorist, I thought Amanda was going to Tottenham and it was her planting all this. I am, of course, joking. I wondered, Steve. I mean, Mitch is just beautifully hit the nail on the head there. I was struggling to see what the story was in terms of. So, MBS is the ruler of, he's in charge of the Public Investment Fund of Saudi Arabia. Public Investment Fund bought a football club for peanuts. And now we're all surprised that, he's been linked. Well, in my head, of course, he was always linked. He was linked from day one, wasn't he? Because it's his bloody public investment fund. I don't understand the intricacies of it. You know, I've said that 1,000 times on this show, but so what? So, and, as you said, that the ultimate issue that we were led to believe was all about the separation of PIF and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Clever legal people have been involved and said, there you go, Premier League, there's some evidence to suggest that they are two different entities. So that remains the end of the story. If MBS wants to ring bloody Tony Blair, or whoever bloody hell MBS is ringing, that's a political matter, like Mitch has just said. And I'm not going to sit here and dip my toe into that, because that's a world I completely don't understand. It was always about buying a football club. It was always about a Premier League and a group of elite Premier League clubs who didn't want the football club to be bought by PIF, because the worry was that PIF had come in, do what Abramovich did, and we'd be champions of Europe now. I knew the bloody hell wants Newcastle United as champions of Europe. So what do? We put all these, we try and say it was about piracy. We try and say it was about, geopolitics. We mentioned Greenpeace. Khashoggi's name comes up. We were all getting jaded. We were all getting bored of it. And that started pretty much, when PIF were first brought to the table. It's 2024. And last week we're talking about it again. It was bizarre. Yes, there'll have been text messages, there'll be emails, there'll be smoke signals, there'll be carrier pigeons. This was a big deal. But so what? Because somebody somewhere said these are two separate entities and therefore you pass the owners and directors test. So, where's the story? Steve Hasty beautifully keeps me up to date, and he's sending me this stuff and I'm sending it to my dad. And, and my dad, so what does it mean then? And I'm going, I don't think it means anything. I think it's a journalist with nothing else to worry about. There's no England friendlies for them to bother about or whatever they do. There's no hospitality going at Wembley this week. So Amanda Staveley sent Justin Barnes a text that happened to mention MBS. So what?
George, what have you made of all of this hoo-ha this week?
Well, it's the same group, the same source that wants to do Newcastle United down, and anything they can find, whether it's ancient history or whether it's brand new, they'll write it. But not only do they write it, even Liam threw it out the other night, because and not only did he say it was rubbish, he also pointed out how it was varnished as well, how they'd added more to it than was in the original story. So it's in that sense, it's a non-story. The only thing I'd say in terms of the the involvement of MBS is that he won't be involved in the football club directly, but he'd want the best. I know, having worked with people from Saudi, that's the only thing they're interested in. And if Newcastle United's mentioned at all in his hearing, he'll only want to be able to say they're the best. That's all his interest will be. The other thing about it being emails and WhatsApp and all the rest of it, if someone was to suggest, if there was a court case, for example, where these things came out in court, and lawyers were to suggest to the Premier League that they had to disclose all their emails during the Newcastle takeover and all their WhatsApps during the Newcastle takeover, I suspect Scotland Yard would be brought in because they've got a lot of dirty washing to hide. So, bring it on. It is my attitude. It's a non-story that they're trying to make into a story because of, as Dean says often enough, American money's good, Middle East money's bad. And again, to what I've said on here before is, I wish somebody would start to investigate some of that American money and see where it comes from. Because even I know, in my limited knowledge of finances, that the money that's going into Liverpool has been passed through the Teamsters Union. Well, who are the Teamsters Union? Well, they had very, very curious links to an organisation called Cosa Nostra. It is one of its names. So, it's just there's people who want to support the cartel, the red cartel, will write anything to keep it at the front, and write anything to keep Newcastle at the bottom if they possibly can. So it's a non-event for me, but we could withstand anything they did with that. As I say, if somebody was wanting to ask the Premier League that they had to release all their emails and all their WhatsApps during our takeover period, I think they would wet themselves. They would pass away, because it would drive a coach and horses through the Premier League. So bring it on.
Steve,
it's open season, isn't it, for sovereign wealth funds after the Man City court case when the Premier League got a backside kicked. So because of that, it's a case of, right, well, while we're dealing with Man City, let's keep our indiscretions and our failures out of the headlines by going after the low-hanging fruit, which was, let's bring back the PIF story. And they've got plenty of friends in the press who are quite willing and able and happy to produce those sort of articles. As everybody said, a non-story, a story from 4 years ago, about the fact that there was correspondence, which we already knew. Everybody knew. It was well reported on at the time that correspondence was taking place. What they're now doing is they're now going into the minutiae of some of the words that were used in those text messages to imply that Amanda was saying, well, it was MBS in his role as the Crown Prince, in his role as the de facto leader of Saudi Arabia, who was telling everybody and the Premier League and all and sundry that this deal had to be done, otherwise he was going to do whatever he wanted to do, blah, blah, blah. And it wasn't. What she was implying, or what she was saying in the emails, was something totally different, or in those WhatsApp conversations. But you can read into anything, and you can produce any form of commentary when you have an agenda that you're wanting to make those words form into and support. So we just move on. You're dead right in the fact that the way that Newcastle United is handling themselves at the moment is very, very sort of touchy-feely, nicey. Always has been from the day that the takeover was taking place. Man City are doing all the fighting, it would appear, at the moment. And it's just a case of watch this space and see what happens next, because there will reach a point where somebody's going to snap, some club's going to snap, some individual's going to snap, and that's when all of a sudden the Premier League will find themselves in the deep doodah, as Keith would say.
Just quickly,
that's worth remembering as well, lads. It was a British Prime Minister who used the word cartel in the House of Commons for the first time. It wasn't anybody else. It was a British Prime Minister. not a particularly good one, but you know, he spotted it and said it out loud. So you know, the Premier League really have got to beware.
Lots of people as well, Mitch, saying why the hell it doesn't apply to boxing. They'll never know.
Well, exactly, and other things as well. To be honest, there's a few other things we could talk about. It's even gone quiet on the live golf front, hasn't it? Now they seem to be making it with the USPGA. So you know, there's a lot of things where there's multiple standards going on. And with regards to the comment that was up there before about windows being closed for putting deals through, they're not at all, because the rules haven't been changed, the meetings haven't been had, and that window's still wide open. And I suspect we're probably still trying to find a nice way to do it. That might be what makes us snap. But there's so many other things that's still hanging around. Things that have been signed off. What's happened with these two shirt front sponsors that seem to be imaginary betting companies with images of their CEO was a Chinese TikToker who died 3 years ago, and they shared a common website and all that kind of thing. Where's that all gone? Or is that, we're just all ignoring that now? There are so many things, multiple things with Chelsea that nobody from the Premier League has come out and said, yes, we've agreed that, yes, we've signed that off. There's still problems with Chelsea's money resting in the account of Abramovich. That's never been given to any victim of any action in Ukraine, be that Ukrainian or Russian. The money's gone nowhere, and what's happening to the interest? That's accrued something like 400 million a year in interest sitting in an account. Who's going to get that? And where does that go? We have got multiple things going on that still we're yet to hear a public comment from the Premier League on, and yet still they want to make us the focus of people's attention.
Yeah, I think the thing with the boxing, Steve, as well, is you've got Eddie Hearn and Frank Warren, who are both happy to take and to work together. It's actually brought them together rather than cause a schism. It's brought them together. And there's nothing different happening now with the boxing taking place in Riyadh as happened when it was taking place in Vegas. It's exactly the same. Every big boxing event went to America. Every big boxing event went to Vegas. All the way through, everything, as far as I can remember, all the way through the 70s, the 80s, all those big fights that you saw, whether it was Thomas Hearns or Hagler or whomever, it was there on Madison Square Garden. Now it just so happens that the money is coming out of Saudi Arabia, and they have a gentleman there who's taken boxing to the next level, and it's moving it forward. And Eddie and Frank, who are the main two participants in terms of promoters, are quite happy with that. Then you've obviously certain American promoters are tied in with those, so those guys are happy as well because they're getting that cut. Everybody's getting that cut. And the boxers are happy because all of a sudden the boxers are getting the big payday. Because at the end of the day, it's the boxers who are standing up there, taking the punishment, taking the hits, and putting their lives on the line when they get into a ring. Let's not forget that. And those boxers are now, the vast majority of boxers who are sitting there at the top level and just below, who want to get on the undercards, they're all desperate to go over and fight over there because it's a difference between getting 10 grand for a fight in the York Hall in Bethnal Green or getting 200, 300, 400,000, if not more, fighting in Riyadh, and that says an awful lot. And it doesn't seem to me to be damaging boxing, having it there, other than the fact that people will complain that the national anthem, when they do come over and they bring it on tour, has to play the Saudi national anthem as well. And again, all hogwash. But no, that's the nature of where international sport's going. Sport follows the money. But unfortunately, at the moment, Newcastle United can't follow the money.
Well, look at the fuss there was on Grand Prix racing, and how for a little while Lewis Hamilton used to stick his head above the parapet about this and that. Where's that all gone? It's gone because they've all got piles of money out of it. It's amazing how all of that disappears when they see how good it is and what a difference it's making. And they're driving on tracks that are safer than anywhere else in the world because people have the money to lay them properly and all that sort of thing. Also, in terms of the live golf, if there was any courts in the land that were going in the world that were going to stuff this up. They're in America. Well, where have they gone? Because PIF supplied the lawyers that could get rid of that, and that's it. So it's so irritating, and I keep saying again how anybody in the Western world can have any morals about what's happening in the Middle East at the moment. I don't know.
Yeah, I think the other situation with the golf was that you had the PGA and you had the DP World Tour, and they were both quite happy to fall in line behind each other. But then when another interloper comes in, they don't like it because they're on their patch, and that's the nature of business and the nature of sport now. Sport is business. I mean, everything that we keep hearing that really sticks in my throat is that when the Premier League talk about stuff, they talk about sport and integrity. And the last thing on their mind is sport and integrity. It's business. It's business. It's as simple as that. So,
the words should stick in that crow.
Okay, as always, plenty to get through on a Friday night. It is time for this belter. The day I met, we were asked to send in photographs of you meeting somebody from Newcastle United, past or present, and Mozza sent this in.
Good looking lads, Dan. Do you know what
I mean? Very good, yeah. Stu had a great trip across last week. It was good to see him.
That's the only time you smiled, wasn't it, Boramag? During that 90 minutes?
We're not talking about Brighton, the boss said, so move on.
Okay, James Slater gives us our next question tonight, Steve, and he says, a penny for the panel's thoughts on the situation with Callum Wilson. I feel like the club took a big gamble in the summer by choosing to keep him, and it really looks like it's backfiring at the minute. That follows hot on the heels of Eddie's press conference today, Steve, where we heard confirmation that, again, he is out for another 3 games. And again, it's a strain. A strain of what, I don't really know, but I get James's point in one way, but I don't think we could have got rid of him in the summer. I don't think we could have got rid of him. I just, part of me feels he's sitting here waiting to play his contract out. None of us really know what's going on behind the scenes with Callum. You know, is it fitness? Is it niggles? Is it, you know, or is somebody being picky about when he comes back so they don't want him to completely break down? I don't know. There's so many rumours flying around, but we don't deal in rumours and speculation on here. We try to avoid that. So, I mean, you know, I guess the question I'll add to that is, you know, is this the beginning of the end for Callum Wilson? You know, will we actually see him in a black and white shirt again, Steve?
I hope we do. I really hope we do, Steve. I think what I've got to remember is, like, yes, Callum's had his injury problems throughout the time he's been at Newcastle and before that. But Callum Wilson's not the sort of person and not sort of footballer who's just going to sit there and just go, you know what, I'll pick the wages up. It doesn't really matter. You know, I'm not a Henry Savey who's going to spend 4 years at the club. I don't think Callum's gone out on purpose to get injured, put it that way. I think what he's been is very unlucky, very unfortunate. And as he's got older, you know, issues that might have taken 3 or 4 weeks with one player have taken slightly longer with him. Then he's picked up, I mean, the chest injury was a really, really strange injury, not something I think that many physios will have come across in football. And then obviously the issue with the back, and then they said, you know, he's had these problems with hamstrings and such like. So then it's the back, groin strains. And all of this, as Mitch pointed out just a couple of weeks ago, when we brought in Bunce, who's the new sort of fitness guru, if you like, in terms of the mechanics and body mechanics of players. Perhaps he sat down and assessed Callum Wilson's situation and said, right, well, we need to do this little procedure in the back because that will solve the problems with the calves and hamstrings and the groins and such like. He had the procedure, and it's just taking slightly longer. And I think the player knows his own body. He's feeling a twinge, and he thinks, if I go out and I play with this, then I'm going to be out for another 6 or 8 weeks. I'd rather we waited, and I think the club themselves are sitting there going, I'd rather we wait than force him in and then never see him again. Because I think that Callum Wilson could be a big player in the second part of the season, and we've got this thing where when things aren't going right for a player like that, when there's an injury, we all automatically look at it and go, well, look how much he's getting. That's nothing to do with it. I completely wipe out the fact that he's on 100 or 120,000 £120,000 a week, and isn't it shocking? And the local milkman only gets 10 grand a year, and all this type of thing. It's chalk and cheese, and it shouldn't be coming into the conversation whatsoever. We all there sitting, and I understand people's frustrations, but can we just move on from suddenly becoming sort of like how can I put it, financial experts or financial warriors when it comes to what a player's getting and what he's earning and what he's not doing. He's a thoroughbred superstar footballer whose body is breaking down because of one reason or another, and there's nothing you can do about it other than go to the doctor, try and get it fixed, and then hopefully it's fixed for the next week. And unfortunately, it's not working like that. Although, having said that, I think if he was a horse, he would be put out the stable a long time ago.
George, Callum Wilson, it's sad really, because his stats are brilliant for Newcastle, and I think all of us would love to see him back in a black and white shirt.
It's worse than sad. It's mind blowing. The misfortune he's had, and that misfortune falls on the club as well, and on us. Whenever you want to console yourself about Callum Wilson, remember, he's a centre forward who has more goals per minute on the pitch than Harry Kane. That's a stat that gets me, but unfortunately, we don't see it often enough to make the impact, and that's regrettable. The physics of how he's where he is obviously for the medics to work out, but he seems such a genuine guy. I don't really believe he would sit there taking his money if that's what he was doing simply because he couldn't play. Nobody will be sadder, I suspect, than Callum Wilson. And he's it's not as though he's a pariah in the place. He's a very popular person in the dressing room. So it isn't just about sitting there taking his money home. It's a bit more than that. And as regards taking a gamble, I think we all had a say about what should happen in the summer, and I think I was one that said we should think of moving him on then. But when he decided to stay, I wasn't heartbroken either, because if we got a fit Callum Wilson, even for part of the season, he would make a huge difference. I mean, I go back to the last two games we've had. If Callum had been on the pitch even for 10 minutes in those two games, we would be 5 points better off. I'd no doubt about that. And probably some other people would score goals as well. So, it's sad more than anything. It really, and unfortunately, it reflects on the team and on our enjoyment of our team. But I think Steve's right. He gets fit for the second part of the season. Yippee! We could make quite a difference to what's happening in the league, the second part of the season. So bring it on, and I just wish the bloke luck and getting fit, and hopefully Bunce will get the chance to do some work with him, or if he's not already doing work with him. But it's just tragic, and it, his impact on the club could be enormous even now.
Okay, yeah, Yvonne, yeah. I mean, obviously, every footballer has insurance. Even in the worst case situations, there's insurance. The clubs have to have that. There has to be an insurance when a player plays. They're worth that much money. Interestingly, Mark Byers has just sent us a thing on WhatsApp. I can't put it on the screen because I haven't had time to download it. But he's lost so many days. I mean, you're looking at the list here. Just 98 days, season 24-25. Last season, 156 days lost through injury. The previous season, 22-23, 45 days. The previous season before that, 21-22, 173 days. And then you're going back to 2021, 99 days. So, I mean, in that period, in the 2020 to 2024, 25, you're talking, what's that? 300, 340, 400. You're talking nearly 500 days unavailable. I mean, that's crazy. And prior to that, let's go back to 15-16, 189 days, 16-17, 260 days, 18-19, 72 days, and 19-20, 12 days. One season where he's had just over a week, and the rest of it, it's horrendous. Horrendous. Thanks for sending us that, Mark. I mean, I've not seen that, but that definitely makes you think of, yes, he scores goals, but wow, when you're playing a game like Newcastle are, it's a dangerous one, isn't it, Joe?
Yeah, and I think that's just, for me, says it all, Steve. I think the initial question, what do you do with him? I'm just going to have to say he needs to go. He's a good footballer. Steve Hasty spoke about this. He's an excellent centre forward. He's an absolutely excellent centre forward. He's featuring up there now on our top goal scorer lists in the Premier League and stuff. But just revisit what you've just said there in terms of, we started talking about Aston Villa, and we all acknowledge one of the things is they've got fit strikers. Newcastle United need fit strikers. Unfortunately, we can't rely on him, Steve. We just can't. And whether it's, pulling a muscle in your chest, whether it's his hamstrings, it doesn't matter what it is. And it doesn't matter how good he is. He's absolutely no use to us. And he hasn't been any use to us for those 1,000 days or whatever you've just described. So it is a shame. You don't want anybody out of work on ill health. We need him. We need him fit. I'd love to think he's leading the line, because let's be honest, Alex Isak has just been way off it this season for whatever reason. We need a centre forward. What we don't need is an unfit Callum Wilson. And with all of the financial stuff that we talk about and all the rest of it, if we can get something for him, and if we can replace him with a better version, a younger version, and certainly a fitter version, Callum Wilson goes for me.
Mitch, it's looking bleak really for Callum Wilson, I think. I mean, I'd love to think that he's going to come back and be available, but at the moment he's just he's invisible, isn't he? He's the player we'll never see. We'll hear plenty about him, but never see him.
Right, you're seeing plenty in some of the YouTube stuff that the club put out. He's training in the gym and he's in the background and interacting with all the players constantly. I thought we'd talk about this tonight, so I've had a little chat with some of my sports medicine contacts today before this afternoon when I had 5 minutes. One of the things that come out from both of them is that the greatest predictor of future injury is past injury for every athlete. And it comes back to squad management and player management. That when we have certain injuries, do the players have too much say in when they wish to come back? And are they coming back too soon and putting themselves at risk of further injury again? Like Botman. That situation was ridiculous. How are the club managing Callum? If they've been doing the same thing every time, that's repeating the same mistake, and that's madness. They need to get to the bottom of the global picture of what makes him so injury prone. Now, one of them has suggested again that this procedure that Bunce recommended going into the season might be one of the key identifiers as to why certain injuries are happening repeatedly for him and might never suffer from that again. Eddie made a big statement in his press conference today that they treat Callum Wilson differently now, with much greater caution. That's all well and good and reflects that possibly things have changed. I don't for 1 minute believe Callum Wilson goes out of his way to get injured. Some of his injuries have been quite bizarre. And what I would ask people to stop and think about, if you're a prime athlete at the top of your game and all you want to do is play football and score goals, and your body lets you down repeatedly, that guy must have a ridiculous amount of mental resilience, because that must absolutely fuck with your mind, that you're so close to getting back to where you want to be. Because I believe he wants to be on the pitch scoring goals for Newcastle United. I've not seen any evidence otherwise. Everybody's saying he's just sitting there taking his wages, he's a lazy bastard. No. I don't for 1 minute believe he's part of that. I do think he needs support. And the club haven't managed him and haven't managed the squad to take into account his injury history, which is his biggest predictor of future injury, into account when they've been managing that squad. If they want to keep Callum around, that's fine, but his biggest predictor of future injury is past injury, and that says he misses a third of every season on average. Pretty much. From those numbers you've just... I did a little bit of fact pack and maths while you were talking, and that tells me he misses a third of the season on average with injury. Therefore, he is likely to miss a third of every season with injury going forward. One, any club who uses great statistical analysis will not pay good money for him, so he's not a saleable asset. Two, if he's that well liked in the dressing room, and he does seem to be. If you look at the recent Anthony Gordon video, he's in the gym on a bike training, and everybody's over to him, and they're having a bit of crack with him, and he seems positive, and he seems up for it, and he seems like he's genuinely a key person to have around that dressing room. So if we've got to accept that he's going to be an asset that's going to have no future saleable value, we'll take him while we can, but then we should have planned better than just bringing a Sula in his cover up front. Now, okay, PSR might not have allowed that, but you cannot hide behind that forever. Then there's got to be other moves you could have made where you were trying to spend 70 million on a centre-back that we didn't really need, who turns out he's actually a bit gash this season anyway. So that wouldn't have been money better ploughed into a right-sided forward who could play up front as well and take some minutes the way Gordon has in the middle. To me, that's better squad management. And that's what it reflects on. We shouldn't, I believe, as a fan base, be turning on Wilson like the way I've seen some people do. I think that's really poor form. We're better than that. We should be better than that. He doesn't go out of his way to get injured, and some of his injuries have been quite frankly bizarre. Torn pectoral muscle at the end of a match, wrestling with a centre-back. That's mad. What we're going to have next, testicular torsion because he shaved his nuts a bit too close one night. It's sort of, let's put that on my bingo card. Wouldn't wish that on anybody, mate. And so where do we go with it? We've got to make the best of it. The club, unfortunately, they've obviously now are taking this line that if he feels any tightness and he's not really sure he's able to deliver what he can, maybe the club finally are getting hold of the situation with injuries and taking some of that say away from players. Because, like I've been told by sports physicians, some of these players are superhuman. They'll play through injuries that would have you or I collapsed in bed. Jesse Morse was telling me about a running back from the NFL who had basically one ligament left holding his entire knee together. And he played through 2 games with that. Before he even allowed somebody to do an MRI scan and see that basically he had a PCL holding his entire knee together and everything else was a mess. These guys are ridiculously fit, ridiculously well trained, and they can play through things that, like I say, would have you or I bedridden. What that must be doing to Callum mentally right now, he doesn't need us piling on. we're in the situation we're in. We've got what we've got. What I would plead is that the club learn from this going forward. And we've got different people in place now who hopefully can help everybody learn from this. We're work in progress still. And yes, it's a failing. And I wish the club would come out maybe and hold their hands up and admit that failing a little bit. It doesn't make it any easier, but I think it would stop some of the bizarre speculation about, he's going to bonus and it's going to trigger and let's not do this and let's not do that. I'll give you another one if you want to speculate. One of the guys I was speaking to today said, does he have an underlying medical condition that makes him more prone to injury and poorer at healing? Now, that's something we'd never learn about because that would be his private and personal medical history. It's not something we shouldn't know about. But it's a very valid point. That we've got somebody who seems to have a repeating amount of certain types of injuries. And it's very, very frustrating. Yes, Mark, snap his banjo string. Brilliant. We'll add that to the bingo card as well. And I think we really do. When he comes back, and this is my concern, I think he's going to want to bust a gut to show, I'm back and I can contribute here. And he'd probably push himself a little bit too hard and get himself bloody injured again. And I think that's why the club are being so kid gloves with him.
Yeah.
You mentioned the NFL, Mitch. You mentioned the LFL. Wasn't it just the weekend there was an NFL player who was shot in the head and they're saying he's doubtful for Sunday?
I know.
Okay.
If you see some of the injuries that these guys literally try and play through, and they'll stand up and they'll tell trainers, I'm all right. And it takes something like that awful fracture dislocation that Chris Godwin had on Friday morning over here to actually stop them from standing up. It's very, very frustrating, and I do worry about, in terms of mental health, what that must be doing to Callum.
Yeah, frustrating. Okay, we are, believe it or not, an hour through the show already. It flies over on a Friday when you're having fun. We'll have a little break so the lads can fill their drinks up. Here's the ads.
A big thanks to all our sponsors, Skips and Bins. You can find them at their website, skipsandbins.com. Contact them, www.skipsandbins.com/contact. Say hello to low-cost waste disposal with pay-as-you-go and contract waste management. A big thanks to Mr. Vicky's Sauces, handmade in Cumbria. You can contact them at their website, mrvickies.co.uk. Email info@mrvickies.co.uk or telephone 01768 210 102. A big thanks to our NUFC Matters fanzine sponsor, United Group Travel. They are the Travel and Tourism Award winners 2024. 2-crew driver and courier, local family company, 3-star plus quality hotels and no interchanges. All excursions included. Contact them at their website, www.unitedgrouptravel.com. Email beverly.ugtl@gmail.com or telephone 01670 632 460 or mobile 0791 666 4174. There are no strangers on our tours, just friends you haven't met yet. A big thanks to Media Arts for all the technical side of things. And don't forget, we are also a podcast, and you can find us on iTunes, Spotify, or other podcast providers. If you want to help the channel, you can hit the like button, which is the little thumb under each video. You can click the share button to share it to other social media, or subscribe to the channel. Hit the subscribe button, and it is for free. We still do 7 shows a week. Hit the join button, and you can join the channel for $1.99 a month to help support us. We do promote events on this channel. Derek Wright is holding his official book launch at the Tyneside Irish Centre, 15th of November. Tickets are £22, and that does include a signed book. Tickets are from newcastlelegends.com. Gold Star Promotions and Gateshead Leisure Centre are bringing Lennox Lewis to the area as part of his UK tour. You can get tickets by calling 0191 250 5066. Tickets start at £39. The Long Sands are back in aid of Dementia Matters and being supported by Lilac Lane and the Chris Norris Band. Saturday, January the 4th, 2025. Tickets £15 from newcastlelegends.com or from the Clooney box office. Peter Beardsley will be at the Tyneside Irish Centre on the 10th of January, 2025. Tickets are available from newcastlelegends.com or from Woucher. An Evening with the Entertainers takes place at the Tyne Theatre and Opera House, the 24th of January, 2025. You can buy tickets for that now from the box office, 0844 249 1000, or from the website, tynetheatreandoperahouse.uk. And the Magpie Lounge is now open at Gateshead Leisure Centre. 7 tokens for £99. Call 0191 250 5066 to book your tickets today. And the first of those tokens will be the 31st of January, an evening with Lee Clark. If you just want to buy tickets separately, call 0191 250 5066. And the book everyone's talking about, The Entertainers, 1992 to 1997, Kevin Keegan's Legacy, is on sale now. The book will be posted out on the 1st of December, written by Will Scott, over 30 contributors to this book. newcastlelegends.com or Amazon to buy it today.
Okay, welcome back. It is time for Tweet of the Week. And as always, if you're easily offended, probably best to look away now. Kev's dog, Kev the coach, who is often on our shows, has got a dog who's got a problem on the Miller Lite there. So big shout out to Kev. Thank you for sending us that in, mate. And they say a banana a day cleans your colon. Then I found out you're meant to eat them. Thank you for that one. I think that was one of Stephen Kennedy's. Stephen Kennedy's always needs vetting. That was one of his clean ones. Tinsy, thanks for this. Stop. Please do not enter our hospital if you're feeling unwell.
One way to cut the waiting list.
Certainly is. And I don't know who this dog is or why he's banned from the park, but he certainly seems like a lot of fun.
I was going to say, I'd adopt that dog. That'd be fantastic.
Another sign, restroom is for eating customers only. And I love this. This was discovered in a house in Felon this week. Somebody knocked an old wall down, and that was behind it. Fantastic that. You know me in my photos, lads. Every time I see one, there's always something that springs to mind. But fantastic that. Bit of history. I mean, there's a lot of these houses will have things like that. George, does that bring back any memories for you?
Well, at my granny's house in Breckenburn Roads in Glowfell, that's exactly what we had. And they used to keep the coal backed up right to the back of the hearth. And when they wanted to top the fire up, they just dragged it forward. The only trouble is every now and again it would set the bloody chimney on fire and the whole place would go.
Fantastic, great stuff. Love that. Thank you for that one as well. Tweet of the week from Mark Byers. Got beat at Norton Crosses today. Good. Very good. And the Northern Lights. Fantastic. Great photo of the Northern Lights there. All right. Aye, sound. More of the Northern Lights next week, I think. Beware of a new Amazon scam. My husband ordered me some expensive jewelry, but motorcycle parts came instead. Thankfully, they fit his bike.
There you go.
Oh, shame.
And Napoleon and his wife are buried next to each other. They're only a bone apart.
Oh, boom, boom.
And today I met Bruce Lee's vegetarian brother, Broccoli, and his brother who can't take a joke seriously. And the one throwing shades all the time, sarcastically. And the one who was always last minute, suddenly. And the one who always so sure of himself, definitely. Let's not forget about the one whom everyone can predict, usually. Very good. I like that one. Thank you for that, Stephen. Hiding from the wife and bar phone rates. Every bar should have this. Nope, not here. £1. Just missed him. £2. Oh, he had one and he left. £3. He's not been in all day. £4. Who? £5. Fantastic. God, remember them days. Quite a lot. I did like this one as well. Another sign. Need a hand underneath the Durex advert. And a couple of billboards. Viagra. It won't make you James Bond, but it'll make you Roger Moore.
Oh, God.
Whee!
Again. Sweet dreams are made of cheese. Who am I to disagree? Thank you for that one. And I love this one because colds are starting to become a thing again, lads. Is this a real cold? Is this just allergies? Caught in a landslide of pollen falling off the trees. Open your eyes, look up to the skies and sneeze. I'm out of Kleenex, need antihistamines because my stopped up nose cannot blow. Fever's high, then it's low. Anyway, the wind blows, it's always full of pollen for me. For me. Thank you for letting us sing that on my own, George, by the way. There you are, that one's for you, Julie.
Let you sing it on your own because I didn't want to crucify Freddie Mercury.
Oh, God. And my sister says she opened a battery kiosk at the park. Please don't say she sells sea cells by the seesaw.
Brilliant.
Clever, very clever. Good news from McDonald's. They found Mark's finger. It's safe to order fries again. And a man asked his wife, "What would you do if I won the lottery?" She replied, "I'd take half and leave." He said, "I've won $12. Here's $6. Stay in touch." And this one was from Porty Street, Henderson. Great name, that, isn't it? Tweet of the week: a simple carton of milk, but these guys look so puzzled. And another supermarket faux pas: Morrison's wafer thin penis is only £1. And this one spotted in a German supermarket, some Nackerschnitten. Not sure what that's made of, but I think I'll give it a swerve. Give this lorry a swerve as well, because it's busier than a cucumber in a women's prison, it says. And as for this pizza, well, this is what the International Break pizza looks like from Domino's. Very good. An amazing new lipstick that helps you lose weight. Gorilla Glue. And the moment when you get a doctor's appointment. And if we wanted to boldly send billionaires where no billionaires have been before, we could have just sent them to the tax office, says this tweet of the week.
Right.
And Jimmy Moore, thank you for this. He says, "I've just rolled a joint. It was my ankle. I'm old." And the plural of octopus, of course, is octopi.
Oh.
This makes sense, lads, as well. This is a snake's mouth. And this floor is about to reveal itself to the Jedi. Another Star Wars one. Kim Kardashian secretly filming the next Star Wars movie. Jimmy, I love this. Star Wars fans will know. Someone had more time than spare time in the office, didn't it, to do that? But very good. Very good X-Wing fighter. And I love driving in the winter because I pretend I'm flying the Millennium Falcon. Final Star Wars one for this week. I love that. It's a Star Wars one for the week, lads. If you know, you know. Very clever. Very clever. A Jordan Pickford one from Mick Mullane. He says, "Pickford spotted near Rosebery Topping out watching the comment a couple of nights ago." And some new crisps on the market from Steve. Ibuprofen flavour, raw sewage flavour, pub sick, wet dog, grubby. I can't read that second word. And yeah, thank you. And the third, but yeah, I'm not going to read that out either. But thank you for those. But I won't be trying any of them. Oh crap! Was that the day? Said the two dinosaurs from Soda Pop Kid as the arc leaves. And to the person at work who always steals my donuts, your day of reckoning is come. This is an unfortunate picture on a beach.
Oh dear. Oh dear.
And Jehovah's Witnesses don't celebrate Halloween. I guess they don't appreciate random people coming up to their door. Irish fans replace Sky as their shirt sponsor.
Brilliant.
And I wonder if these designers think things through, says Edward Farms. This bridge was designed to have shadows that reflect the pianists who work nearby. A very similar theme was also used in London. And it's bad enough when a bird craps in your car, but does he have to draw a picture for you? Very good. Very good. And table football manufacturers have brought out the Premier League edition finally. I was
Callum
sent this
Wilson.
on. It is Callum Wilson there. I was sent this one numerous times. Don't fart in an Apple store. Why? They don't have windows. Very good. And we've had all those hurricanes. So there's a trampoline, £25. Buyer must collect. And I thought I looked nice in my sweater, but my fiance said I looked like a retired member of the X-Men. Final few. My missus says we need to have a chat about my immature behaviour. Like that's going to happen during conquer season. And give your turkey tan lines this year a freak your family out. I think that's great, isn't it?
That's phenomenal.
See people doing that at Christmas now. Okay, here's your top three. Sorry, babe, doctor's orders. Number two, BBC Radio London recently had a discussion on the overcrowded living conditions in the capital. And I have to say that I'm shocked at the state we have reached. For instance, I read recently in a newspaper that a Premiership footballer shared a bed with 4 women. If a rich footballer is living in such cramped conditions, then what conditions must the average Lunder be suffering? And the winner this week is Ian. New order to curb street drinking. What next? Depeche Mode to clamp down on people smoking at bus stops. If you've got a tweet of the week, please join the Facebook group. Also, the Facebook page, give it a like. And what we will do is go through them and get the next best ones on next week. And you can also follow me at Steve Wraith on X. You might feature on the show. Okay, plenty to get through still. And yeah, Barry Hogan has asked this a couple of times this week. So I guess I've got to ask it. He just says, lads, just got in. Have you spoken about the comments? We can't afford Isaac's wage demands. Where does that leave us? Steve, I mean, I've not heard anything about this. But let's point to Eddie's press conference today where he was asked about the Alexander Isak situation. And he, you know, as always, tends to say, we don't get, you know, I don't know very much about these kind of things. But he actually answered the question quite well today, I thought, by saying Alexander's still got 4 years on his contract. And, you know, there isn't an urgency for it. You know, my main concern is that his mind is right and he's wanting to play for Newcastle. And he was asked other questions by people about how important is it to qualify for Europe to keep these players happy. You know, he says, well, you have to ask. These are the kind of things you have to ask the players. If Alexander was sitting next to us, you could ask him that question yourself. But, you know, he says, ultimately, my job is to make sure that they're happy. And our job is to work towards, you know, our goals. And our goals are to win things. So, you know, there hasn't been any talk of wages. I don't know where this thing has come from that Barry's talking about. You know, the only way we ever really find out what somebody is paid, we don't find that out from when the books come out each year. It's if somebody has a misdemeanor and gets a fine in court, then we'll tend to find out what the player's actually paid, you know, because it's then made public knowledge. He's been fined 2 weeks' wages, that's X amount of pounds. But very rarely do we find out what someone's been paid. It's not announced. But yeah, I mean, Isak, are you bothered? I mean, he's got 4 years left on his contract. I don't really think you know, it'll be organic, I think was the way they described it in the press conference.
Yeah, I think the story originated from the Craig Cope article in the Daily Mail where he said that there was no discussions taking place with Alexander Isak's camp or Alexander Isak himself in terms of a new contract or tying him down to a longer term contract. And they also implied in the article, I think, that Alexander and his team weren't entering into any dialogue. It was then implied that was because they were waiting to see whether or not Newcastle United were going to be playing in Europe. next season, because that's his ultimate goal, is to be back playing in the Champions League. So I think what happens is you get a little story like that, or a little article written that suddenly starts to roll down the hill a little bit and pick up speed and pick up momentum and pick up a different tack to what the original article was saying. All of a sudden, Eddie gets sort of hijacked in a press conference and said, "Why haven't you been talking to him? Why hasn't he? He hasn't signed a contract. He hasn't." And there was no contract up in front of him, but it's, people are now wanting to say, well, it was only Monday or Tuesday that Anthony Gordon was tied down to a longer term contract, which he had to be because he only had, I think, 18 months left on his contract, where Alexander has a 4-year contract, and maybe he's come back in 2 years, and we'll start talking about, because when you signed, you got a nice little pay packet, and you probably, if you've got a 4 years left, perhaps you've had an increase already. Who knows? Again, that's just me speculating there, because I'm sure if that was the case, Craig would have mentioned it in his article anyway. But no, that's where it's come from. That's where it's picking up. And I think, again, that's also the sort of thing. Once a local journalist writes something like that, then you'll get the national tool start to hammer it. And various people coming out with the woodwork from London, and the name Arsenal will be connected. Tottenham will be connected. You name it, every Chelsea, they'll be connected. Every team that's looking for a striker of the caliber of Alexander Isak will be sitting there. And Newcastle fans are naturally susceptible to all of this, because what do we keep getting told? Because of PSR, we've got a sell in which to buy. We've got, our top players all have a price, which is what Darren Eales said at the turn of the year. So this is just going to perpetuate, just going to continue all the way through the season, into the next close season, and then beyond. And we'll keep hearing that every player has a price. But it's just one of those things, Steve, that we're going to have to put up with. Some of us throw it away and ignore it. Other people get wrapped up in it and start to think it's the worst thing that happened. And other people seem to be desperate to move the player on because he's obviously greedy. And better not have him. He's not scoring goals. Christ, it's only October. We've got a full season ahead of us, but people have short memories, and sometimes our concentration time span is to the point where we only remember the performances over the last fortnight. We don't remember them over the previous sort of 18 months or whatever. So it's just the way that football operates now, Steve.
George, thoughts on Alexander Isak? I mean, he's got 4 years left. It's not as if it's an urgent thing to sort out.
Well, and I thought Eddie's last bit was the important bit. He just said it's up to the players to show us what they want on the pitch. So I'm quite sure if suddenly Alexander wakes up and by the end of the season he wins the Golden Boot with 30 goals, then yes, they might even start to talk about a contract then. But let's see you do it. The other thing I'd point out is, of course, we've just had nearly 2 months of being told that Anthony Gordon wanted to go to Liverpool. Anthony Gordon's going to Liverpool. Anthony Gordon's desperate to go to Liverpool. And the kid, as soon as the lad was able to, he came out and said, rubbish, never even crossed his mind. It was never even put to him. And yet you've got all these so-called eminent journalists telling me that's what was going to happen. So, it's another press story out of nothing. Somebody's mentioned the possibility and turned it into a massive problem. But I think Eddie covered it. You show us on the pitch what you want, and that's the best way to get what you want. And so, as I say, if Alexander was to suddenly start scoring at the end of the season, won the Golden Boot, yeah, he can knock on Eddie's door and say, how about that, boss? And I would be the last to criticise him. But yeah, he's got 4 years, for God's sake, and I don't think he's on a pittance at the moment. So, no, and I've got to say, everything I see about him, he's as happy as a sandboy. I mean, he's learned Geordie quicker than any other player I know.
Joe, thoughts on Alexander Isak? I mean, I'm not panicking, I've got to be honest.
No, not at all, Steve. And you know, fundamentally, we've seen it before. We could tie him down to a 300 grand a week, 10-year contract, and if Real Madrid offer him 400 grand a week, he's not staying at Newcastle anyway. So I'm always a bit kind of funny with these contract things, you know. But fundamentally, yeah, he's a wonderful footballer. I don't know. There's a misfire this season that he's not doing what he was doing last season. And I think that when he went through one-on-one at the weekend against Brighton, you know, that was a goal all day long last season. He'd have buried that. For whatever reason, he didn't. He doesn't look at it. But you know, Anthony Gordon gets a contract, and now all of a sudden, you know, we've got to look at Isaac, and then if we look at Isaac, we've got to give Bruno a new one, and then Joe Linton will want more money, and before we know it, we've spent another £10 million a week on new contracts for players who don't need new contracts. He's a young kid. He's probably at the right club for where his career is at the moment. If he gets the form back that he was shown last season and fires us into the Champions League, by all means, I'd be banging on the door of the you know, Paul Mitchell or whoever sorts these things out now. But at the moment, he's our footballer. The transfer window's not open, and he's not jumping up and down for a new contract. So yeah, let the kid just play football. Let his agent sort his contract out. When we're you know, in the Champions League quarterfinals and semi-finals, then of course, you know, he might be worth 300 grand a week by then. But at the minute, he's worth what he's worth. He gets paid what he gets paid. And he needs to start scoring goals. So, you know, no rush. Let's just see what happens.
Yeah, Mitch, I mean, he has been, you know, he hasn't been firing on all cylinders, but every player goes through a bad patch. And I think we heard as well from Eddie Howe about Isaac today that, you know, he's had his own fitness issues.
Yeah, and that's been obvious. And he also takes 2 or 3 games to get back into his stride when he has been injured, and we saw that at the weekend. He had, 7 opportunities at goal at the weekend? And if you give him that every week, I'll take him to score a lot of goals.
Yeah.
At the end of the day. You also have to remember, the question is actually not what was said. None of these words have been used by Eddie Howe, even by Craig Hope. Craig, who asks questions that he has put to him by other fans like you and I and everybody else. And you know, if you go onto Twitter, these questions are being asked by some of our fan base. Craig also gets done up like a kipper by his headline writers at the Mail sometimes. Is there agenda there? Aye, probably. Isaac's got a number of years left on his contract, and it's quite right to say renegotiating with him now would be folly, because from a PSR perspective, we've just had one lad sign a brand new contract. Bruno signed an extension last summer. And a number of them and a number of others will have parity clauses or percentage increases if somebody else gets a raise. And yes, from a PSR perspective, right now as it stands, that'll fuck us over. It would be a nonsense to renegotiate Isaac now. Now, if his camp are agitating, fine. I bet they're not. I really bet they're not. And so we all have to just stay calm a little bit. It's more white noise. It's more things to disrupt the positivity of Newcastle United. When Newcastle United playing better at the minute, or we're threatening the top 6 again. Even after that ridiculous result at the weekend. And as frustrated and as angry as I was after that result at the weekend, on the face of it, if we create that many chances in every game, we'll win a hell of a lot more games than we'll lose. That fine line feels ever finer again. Isaac was patently not fit when he tried to play through his broken toe. Kudos to him for trying, I guess. But he patently wasn't fit. And I think again, it comes back to squad management. What kind of cover do we have? What the Callum Wilson situation is? Yes, in some respects, once negative stories abound, you get massive interaction from our fan base. Richard Keys did that for years during the takeover, and he loved it, and he knew the buttons to push. He knew which little bit of his hairy little hands he needed to dance across the keyboard to get a reaction from us. He even called me out personally once, which I found very amusing. Especially considering I know things about him that he doesn't realise it. There you go. You're having a little chuckle there, Mr. Hasty, because you know as well. And so it's part of what goes with where we are. We passionately defend the club and we passionately defend our players. And when somebody wants to get negative, we want to jump on it. And it comes back to the lessons that we should have probably learned during the takeover about not biting so hard all the time. And learning to let certain things go. Because the way this reporting has been interpreted, you go back and watch that press conference, none of those words were actually used in the press conference. None of them. People are reading between the lines. And the minute you start reading between the lines, then we might as well start saying Callum Wilson's injuries are due to the fact he was abducted by aliens and he had a transponder placed in his back of his hand. You know, we're into that kind of realm where we're just making it up. And it's hard to ignore it. I'm sure Craig's pissed at times when he gets chucked under the bus by his headline writers and things like that. But that's the way of the world. Clickbait, interaction, traffic driven to websites, etc., etc. It's no different to what the Chronicle's going through, being run by Reach these days. When we have almost as many negative stories about Newcastle United on the Chronicle's website as we do positive. It goes with the territory now. And they'll still try and tell we're an insignificant little club that's not really part of the bigger picture in the Premier League. Get a life. So stop talking about it. But that'll stop your clicks and your interactions and your income streams, won't it?
Stop the revenue and put people out of a job.
Absolutely. So we all need a little bit thicker skin, lads and lasses, I think.
Yeah, I agree, mate. I agree. Okay, half an hour left. Time for these. Well done, NUFC Matter viewers. You have upped your game on this. First of all, Jimmy Moore said, Toon Lookalikey, when did Steve Hasty move to Georgia? Steve, when did you move to Georgia?
Yeah, well, where am I now? I wonder.
Tim, this was a late entry from Tim. Rather. I'm not. Well, is it the pout? I'm not sure. I was trying to see whether they had the same necklace, but I included it, Tim, because you sent it. Stephen Kennedy, this isn't a lookalike, but I thought I'd chuck it in here. He says, I asked AI to come up with images of typical Mackens. Which is brilliant. Thanks for that, Stephen. And this one, brilliant. Yeah, the Wolf of Wall Street and Anthony Gordon. I see where you're coming from with it. I see where you come from. Mozza and Alan, it's not a winner, but it was. You put a lot of time and effort into this.
Stewie.
And me. The Wanderers. Yeah, very good. But it's not the winner this week. There are some really good ones. Tom Dixon, thanks for this. Andros Townsend and Lewis Hamilton. Very good. And he's also sent in Luka Modric and David Guetta. And James Milner and Lee Evans, which I think somebody else has sent in before, but it's a good comparison. and Harry Kane and Ryan Gosling. Thank you for your entries this week, Tom, but none of them are winners. This one is a cool cat. Great hairstyle. Donald Trump, of course. And Rob from Talk of the Tune. Yep, thank you, mate. I've been compared to him before, and I'm sure it'll happen again. But yes, lead man of James and me as a lookalike. Another one from Steve Hasty's fan club. I did have to edit this one very carefully, Steve.
Not your mate.
I've had to do a couple of edits this week, unfortunately, for some of them. But yeah, Stephen Kennedy, is it me, or has Anthony Gordon been time traveling? Anthony in the background. Very good. And Jimmy Moore also sent this one. If you put woman's hair on Mike Myers, you get Mariah Carey.
Yeah, dear.
Yeah, it's a sort of lookalike, so I included that as well. Ian Brown and Lewis Hall.
Yeah.
If you had the grey hair, maybe. This one's been used before, but we use it again. Steve Hasty.
Dear me.
Chris O'Neill, Stephen Hendry, and George Michael.
That's not bad, no.
It's not bad. It's not bad. I mean, you took the glasses off, it wouldn't look like him, but it's not bad, Chris. This one is better, Chris. Frank Stapleton and Chris Billum Smith.
Oh, the boxer. Right.
Yeah, not bad, not bad. Thomas Tuchel has been mentioned in dispatches and lookalikes this week from Jimmy.
Well, look.
And this lookalike's great as well. Leonardo da Vinci and Mona Lisa. Photographed by Keith Richards, says Stephen. And Sutty, Toon lookalike, Chris Moyles and James Bunce.
Oh.
Yeah, it's okay. It's not a winner, though. It's not a winner. Jimmy Moore, 2 clowns.
Yeah.
Pretty good, pretty good. This one I'm sure we've had before, Stephen, but again, I do like it, so I'll include it.
It's class, that.
Coming down to the business end. Oh yeah, that's something for later. That's not a lookalike. I don't know how that. This is the lookalike. Jimmy, yes. When Alexis McAllister looked like Messi, De Bruyne, Sergio Ramos, all at the same time. Top 2. Madonna and the Alien on Space Raiders from Edward Farms.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
The winner's from Mark Byers, and I did have to edit it because it had something underneath it. A man in a hospital bed and George.
Oh,
Or is it Spenny? I think it's Spenny, isn't it? It's Spenny. It's more Spenny, isn't it?
Right.
I think it was Spenny, he said, but I had to edit it because of what it said underneath. So Mark Byers, I think you said it was Spenny, so I'm going to go with Spenny, yeah, off the top of my head. But well done, Mark, you've won it this week. See, I do look at your stuff, Mark, but I do have to edit it heavily. If you've got a lookalike, please send it to us at the Facebook group or the Facebook page. Like the page, join the group, or at Steve Wraith on X, and I will feature that next week. Yes, Ian, I'm not reading that out, but he says it's more Spenny, that. Yeah, Mark. Oh, there's Mark. I said Spenny. It is Spenny. It is Spenny. Thanks for that. Okay, let's look ahead to the game, the 2 games we've got against Chelsea, actually. Obviously, tomorrow, Saturday is a day of rest for us. Sunday is when Newcastle play. And as always, we will bring in our experts. First up, it is going to be Scunny Mag giving us a view on away days. Watch out for those 3 words.
Hi folks, Scunny Mag here with another away day guide. This one is for Chelsea. Anybody going to Stamford Bridge, this is for you. Okay, Stamford Bridge. It's in West London. If you come in by car, use a park and rides. And then if you're coming in by train, your closest tube station is Fulham Broadway, which is just to the west of the ground, and the other one is Earl's Court. Those are served by the District line. Earl's Court is also served by the Piccadilly line, which will run directly into London King's Cross. That's probably your best bet. And if you are coming into Earl's Court, we've got 3 pretty decent away-friendly pubs. Your first one is Courtfield Tavern, which is just across the road from the tube station at Event Music Glitz. But these 3 pubs are quite modest in size. They're not, I wouldn't say they're small, but they're not big pubs that will get loads of people in. So if that one's packed, turn left, head up Earl's Court Road, and on your right, you'll come to the Prince of Tech. Similar kind of size, but it's got an upstairs area, shows live matches, and you can find that at Shakes Bath Clots. And then about another 100 metres up the road, again on the right, you've got the Earl's Court Tavern. This is a Green King pub. Some people have the season ticket cards for loyalty points and stuff. So if you're a member of them, get yourself to that one. And Powder Cafe Bottom will find you a nice little spot outside the front. If you're staying over, it's London. There's plenty of hotels. I tend to favour hostels when I'm in London. If you are coming in from the north, there's a Cabanas near St Pancras Station. But when you are ready for the match, you're looking at a 15 to 20 minute walk straight down Earl's Court Road until you meet Fulham Road, turning right, and then carry on until you see the ground on the right where the away fans are housed. And when you head at the ground, you walk 3 words of Knee Punk's Wedge will get you to the southeast corner where you need to be. If you've got a ticket for the lower turnstiles, you want to be on the left-hand lane. Upper, you want to be on the right-hand lane. There is a multi-stage security check process, so it will take a little bit of time to get in. Build that into your day. It's open, get the result. I've been Paul. Thanks again. See you in the next one.
Cheers, Paul. See you at Stamford Bridge. Thanks to him. It's now time for Toon Stato.
Hello everyone, some quick stats before the game on Sunday against Chelsea. Actually at Stamford Bridge in the Premier League, Newcastle has played 29 games, winning 1, drawing 7 and losing 21. That one win came back in May 2012 and that famous brace from Papi Cisse. Actually from going 8 games unbeaten in London, Newcastle has lost 3 of their last 5 games in London. Harvey Barnes, however, scored in the last 2 visits to London against Brentford and against Fulham. The last 2 players to score in 3 consecutive games in London for Newcastle were Callum Wilson and a certain Peter Beardsley. On the positive side, though, Newcastle has won 2 of the last 4 games against Chelsea in the Premier League. And Eddie Howe, actually, with the 2 wins he has against them, is only behind Alan Pardew for most wins in the Premier League against Chelsea. Alan Pardew managed to win 4. Again, 3 of them at St James's Park. When it comes to players, Chelsea have fielded the youngest starting 11 in the Premier League, with the oldest player to feature so far being Tosin at the age of 27, and the average age of their starting lineup is below 24 years of age. Actually, in the history of the Premier League, no team has started the first 8 games in a season without anyone above the age of 27. Cole Palmer is on fire for them with 18 goals and 5 assists in his last 14 games at Stamford Bridge, which is a crazy stat. Let's see what happens on Sunday after going 4 games without a win. The last time Newcastle went 5 games without a win was back in March 2023, this bad spell around the Carabao Cup final. Let's hope we manage to get something. Away the lads.
Over to you, Joseph.
Thank you, Stephen. Not great news this week. I think for the
Sorry.
You carry on, mate. It was quite entertaining. Usually pay for dancers like that. So it's not overly fantastic this week, I must admit. And probably for the first time this season, Newcastle are definitely not the favourites to win the football match. So Chelsea are 4-5 to win the game. The draw is 16-5 or just over 3-1 in old money. And Newcastle are 3-1 to win the football match. Stato's just mentioned it there. Cole Palmer absolutely on fire, as is Nicholas Jackson, who I think's actually shite, but he's scoring goals. So Cole Palmer and Nicholas Jackson are favourites to score any time in the game. There is some value in Jadon Sancho and Pedro Neto to score if you fancy betting against Newcastle this weekend. Usual suspects for us, of course. Alexander Isak, leads the way. I think that's just the way it's going to be this season. Joe Linton 6-1, Bruno Guimaraes 8-1. I'm still waiting for Big Dan Burn at the back post. That's 10-1. And if you think Lewis Hall will go back to Stamford Bridge and do some damage, you can get 16-1 for a Hall goal. Goals are really fancied in the game, and I think that's reflected in the 0-0 price, which is 22-1. So the bookie's certainly expecting goals to be scored. 1-0 Newcastle, 18-1. 2-1 Newcastle, 14-1. And Mr. Penman, I think, is watching somewhere 28-1, Stewie, on Sunday for you. Ones each, 15-2. If you think Chelsea will win 2-0, you can have 12-1. And my new favourite sexual position, the reverse Penman, that is 12-1. So you can have 12-1 for Chelsea to win 3-1. Caicedo and Joe Linton are both 6-5 to get booked. I think it's got a yellow card wrote all over it for Big Joe. 13-2 if you think Newcastle will receive a red card, and 9-4 if you think there'll be a penalty taken and scored in the game. In terms of Wednesday night's Carabao Cup match, the prices are a little bit closer. Chelsea do remain favourites even though we're at home, but obviously those prices will change depending on what the result is on Sunday. If we get absolutely battered or if we win the game, obviously that'll be reflected on Wednesday night. Interestingly, we are 12-1 to win the Carabao Cup at this stage, and Man City are favourites at 3-1 to win the trophy. So we're not really fancied this weekend. If I was you, I'd bet cautiously, particularly if you fancy Newcastle, because unfortunately, I really can't see us getting much.
Okay, well, we're going to cover both games today because obviously we've got the Carabao Cup on Wednesday as well. And for me personally, I've already taken a 1-1 for Sunday, and for the Carabao Cup, I've took a 2-1 win. Slightly optimistic, I guess, but we're gonna score goals sometime. This bad run's not gonna last forever. But I think we've got enough in our tanks, and the fact, they can rotate the squad, and obviously play an entirely different 11 on Wednesday. But I think I've seen enough in recent visits to Stamford Bridge to know that this team aren't going to be afraid about going there. So I'm going to go for 1-1 and a 2-1 win on Wednesday. And somebody asked a question in the chat. Andy Ford says, if you could only win one game against Chelsea, would it be the league game on Sunday or the cup game on Wednesday? I'm afraid my answer is the same as you, Andy. The cup game is more important. So I would want to win the cup game. And I think we can ask the lads the question. I already seen most of them nodding with that as well, saying that the cup game is more important. So I'm not pointless answering that question. You've all answered it by nodding your head. But yeah, Steve, give us your predictions for both games, please. How do you see both games going?
And it's going to be interesting, isn't it? Again, I said it last week, which Chelsea are going to turn up. There seem to be a team that either on fire or they're completely flat, judging by some of the games that they've played this season. And with the squad that they've got, you must, if you're a Chelsea fan, you must see the selection come up, the names, and go, oh, I forgot he was playing. I forgot he was on our squad. Oh, I forgot. As I did the other day, I think it was yesterday when I saw the lineup and saw some of the players, and I'd forgotten that they had those players playing for them. You know, it's just a weird setup at Chelsea at the moment. And of course, they did invent the phrase "bomb squad," didn't they? That's the new football word of the year, which will enter most sporting dictionaries. Chelsea's bomb squad. Where are we going to go with them? It keeps ringing us. I don't know why. Where we're going to go with it? I think it's going to be quite difficult. Actually, I think Chelsea can raise their game whenever they want, and I think we're struggling at the moment. So I'm not. I don't think we're gonna come away with anything on either games. To be perfectly honest, I think we'll struggle, and I wonder what changes Eddie will make in midweek. And no matter what happens, either on Sunday or in midweek, it'll all be Murphy's fault anyway. So, you know, who am I to question anything? So I'm gonna go for a defeat. Do you want scores as well, Steve?
Yeah, please, yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna go for a 3-1 defeat in both games.
Okay, George, coming to you now on both games. How do you see both games going?
Well, as usual, I'm Mr. Optimistic when it comes to Newcastle United. However, you beat us to it, Steve. 1-1 on Sunday and 2-1 win on Wednesday. And I think we've got the power to do it. If we play as well as we did against Everton, against Manchester City, and for a large part of the game against Brighton, we should be able to hold Chelsea. It's sticking the ball in an onion bag is what is the problem at the minute. But I've just got a feeling that we'll turn up and play on both games, and on Sunday it'll be 1-1, and on Wednesday it'll be 2-1 to us.
All right, Joe.
I don't think we're getting anything, are we? I think particularly if we play the way we have, yes, we're creating lots of chances. No, we haven't stuck them away, but you're playing a side that are on the uppers fundamentally. They look a different side this year, certainly the one of the last couple of seasons. I would like to think it depends what Eddie Howe does, doesn't he? If he goes in there and tries this defensive, shut the shop up and hope they don't break through, we all know where that leads. If we go for it, we got to hope the strikers are on form and going to score. There's lots of kind of permutations when you're playing a side that like I say, that are really playing well, in my opinion. So I don't have a great deal of optimism, as much as I want us to win both games. I will take 2-0 and no further damage on Saturday. Might they put their second, third string out on Wednesday night? Might we have a decent enough second string? Could we get a draw and take them to penalties? I'd take that all day long. But I'm not going to sit here and say we're going to win, 3-0 on Saturday and we're going to win 4-0 in the Cup. I just don't see it at all. So I'm Team Hasty this weekend.
All right. What about you, Mitch? You've got the dice, I presume, but you're going to have to do it twice, mate. It's a doubler.
But a couple of quick things, if you don't mind, before I go on to this.
Yeah, go for it, mate.
A reminder, anybody in Dubai this weekend, we've got Peter Beardsley over on Sunday doing a talking at UBK before the Chelsea game, and he'll be hanging around to watch the game with me and more. Somebody's decided it's a great idea to give me the mic for the afternoon, so that should be fun.
Don't forget to film some of it. Make sure you get a little bit of content for us on here, mate.
We're going to try to. One of the conditions of them coming is that we don't film or take pictures during the Q&A, though. But we'll
just him arriving and stuff would be great. You know what I mean?
Perfect.
He's a big fan of the. He is a big fan of the show, so I'm sure he'd be happy as long as.
I'm really looking forward to having him over, to be honest with you. The other thing as well, I mentioned last week Dave Cartman, who passed away in the Philippines. Just to reach out to everybody who's donated to the GoFundMe to say thank you very much. We're nearly touched £6,000 to send across to his wife and son. And if I want to put that in the context for you, the average yearly wage in the Philippines is about £6,000. So that'll give Lizelle a little bit of a breathing space and a little bit something that she can help while she decides where to go next and what to do as a family. Generous Geordies once again, but more than Geordies, football community coming together. People from all sorts of football backgrounds have contributed to that, but a lot of Geordies. So thank you everybody who has. That will make a difference. Believe you me, it will make a massive difference. So thank you. We go to this well all the time. I see so much generosity and camaraderie through NUFC Matters and all the charities we support. But for something like that, that is, to me, quite personal. Because sure as hell, Dave would have been front row on Sunday with Pedro over here. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it.
Yeah, well done, everybody.
Back to football. I watched Chelsea against Liverpool with the Chelsea lads over here last week. Didn't see anything that terrified me out of that. I really, honestly didn't see anything out of that made me concerned. Tosin, they can keep him. He was poor. The goalkeeper made some good saves, but by God, he's got an error in him as well. If we can put some pressure on and we can still keep creating chances, we'll take those chances one day. What worries me is they will hurt us on the break, and they will hurt us at the back too. When it comes to the cup game, we will play a totally different 11. They've done that in the European game through the week. They will do it again in the League Cup game. I'm quite sure of that. It's not on the high list of priorities. And they've got a squad so deep. Again, back to where we started talking about rules and financial fair play and all of that. You know, all these players that they've signed. Yes, some of it's skullduggery. Yes, some of it's clever accounting. Yes, some of it's frankly wrong. But also they've had a ridiculous pool of talent that they've been able to sell and make money on and balance the books with. And again, that's what cripples us with FFP. It's not about anything else for me. It's about the players we can't sell, and they have been able to sell. So I think we're facing almost an entirely different 11. And with that in mind, and being at home in midweek, I don't think Eddie will make many changes. I think we'll go full strength. And I'm more optimistic for the cup game. And I do think, in the bigger picture of where our season is right now, that is the more important game to focus on. And I can't believe I'm saying that, but that's where we're at. 2 results from the dice. So, Sunday, that was, I'll find it, the reverse penman. It was 3-1 to Chelsea. Cup game. Oh my God, we're not facing penalties again.
1-1. What about your predictions?
We'll get beat by the odd goal in 3 on Sunday, and we'll reverse that in midweek.
I'll settle for that, to be honest. I certainly would. Great show tonight. We are going to finish off with a little bit of Elliot. I did a comedy gig in an old people's home. None of them understood me jokes, but they all wet themselves. Very good, Elliot.
Oh.
Very good.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you, everybody in the chat. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do. We are only broadcasting on YouTube at the minute, and still 500 live on a Friday night is still mind blowing. We never take that for granted.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Subscribers are still going up, which is great. We are, jogging along quite nicely on this platform, and it's been another great week. Thanks to everybody who's joined us this week. 2 pre-recorded shows over the weekend. Joe Allen tomorrow night, 6 o'clock. Where he looks ahead to the Joe Allen derby, of course, and Newcastle playing Chelsea twice in the space of a couple of days. And on Sunday, George and I, what year did we go back in, George? 2017, 2018?
17-18, yeah. First year back in the Premiership.
Yeah, so that was good. So that's those were the days, which is on Sunday night at 6 o'clock. And then Monday, we're back live again with the Fans Forum. See you all next week. Enjoy your weekend. And as we always say on the Amigos, don't let the football spoil it. Take care, lads.
Cheers, everyone.
Hey, everybody.